All right. Look at that. It worked. Mr. Powers, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So this is episode 2 of the COVID lockdown pop-up editions. I last night I did one with my kiddo, and I got to tell you, today is the shits. Today's the worst of the COVID so far. I woke up eyes a mess, stuffy. So hopefully this is the peak of how bad it gets. Have you had COVID, Zeke?
I have not actually. I have avoided it so far. So
What's your
I guess
secret?
I'm the feeling the proud. I just don't know anybody, so I just hide in my room and don't go outside. I can't explain it. I've been around all kinds of people that's had it, and maybe I'm naturally immune, and we'll go with that.
Well,
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
yes, X-Men superpowers probably, right?
Right.
So those of you that you've heard, if you tuned into this before, you've heard the name Zeke Powerz several times. I think Chris, the Big Icky, came up with a drinking game a long time ago that every time we said the name Zeke Powerz, we had to take a drink, and that got a little ugly. So I'm trying to be a little bit more professional. And with COVID, I'm not drinking at 11 o'clock in the afternoon or morning. So Zeke is a dear friend, one of my favorite people in the entire world, one of the most talented and funny magicians I know, and honestly one of the best dudes that I know. So Zeke, you've got a big month coming up that you wanted to talk about. So tell us a little bit about what your October.
Well, October's always busy for magicians and for us
Good
mystery
magicians.
workers.
Good magicians.
And that's true.
I
That's
guess it's
true.
busy for shitty magicians too, but just not as good.
It's especially busy for those who are mystery workers like yourself and the mystery collection and myself. It's just a hot month. You're doing ghost tours. I know Paul Prater's got ghost tours. There's a lot of entertainers that kind of delve with ghosts and kind of the mysterious themes that we do. And yes, I do a ghost tour. As a matter of fact, I'm in downtown Blairsville where we'll be kicking off our second annual ghost tour here. A little different this year is we're going to be focusing exclusively in downtown Blairsville. In case you're wondering what that looks like, I'm going to turn around here. Here's the courthouse. The original one burned down. This is the replacement that was built in late 1800s. I'm sorry, I think it was 1911 when the new one was actually built. And that place is the focal point because there is stories of a ghost that has been haunting that place for some time. They've named him Howard. I don't think that that's a really connected name. That just seems to fit. He's a kind of a disheveled, kind of a longer hair, kind of an unkept beard, and he just seemed to be wandering around the historical. So historical society is now based there, but it's the old courthouse, and he's actually they've been in there with no cars and no traffic late at night, and all of a sudden some of the chandeliers will start swinging. They'll hear like a door close, and they go, and all the doors are open, which doesn't make any sense. So that's just, and I just found out about him this summer when I joined the Historical Society. We're going to be covering a lot of the local legends and stories. There's plenty of great photo ops, and as I turn around here, you'll see we have a huge mural right here in the town. There's another one on the other side. It's a giant postcard. There's just all kinds of great photo ops, and that's what we're going to be offering on the ghost tour. Besides the experience of checking out some of these haunted locations, matter of fact, we got a restaurant that's been in business here since 1931. That's still open 7 days a week right now. And in addition to some of the great businesses and local support from some of the bookshops and some of the other businesses here that I've met and I'll be partnering with on the tours, we've got a great shot here, and I'm going to stand here. This is where kicked the tour off, is right here at this sign. And then I always get a picture of everybody that's in it because you and I both know, well, we might start the ghost tour off on a happy note. Sometimes we lose a few people along the way, so we want to be able to identify them. And so it's good to have a group photo. So we always start off with a group photo here. And it kicks off. It's every Friday night. The tour starts officially at 8. I get everybody in about 7:45 to go over the rules. And then it's a 90-minute walking tour. And I think I've been overwhelmed with emails and ticket requests. We're almost sold out for the first one this Friday. And then, of course, plenty of tickets still remain. And if you want to do a private ghost tour, no problem, a minimum of 5. we schedule a time, reach out to me, we can make that happen. And that is besides all of the regular shows and other events that I'm doing. A lot of private parties this year. And when Halloween, I see this a lot, when Halloween falls on a weekday like a Tuesday, those weekend days get snatched up pretty quick for Halloween parties when most people want to do their parties. And I know the 28th, I've been booked on the 28th as well as Friday the 13th now for several months. My Friday 13th show is going to be kind of cool because I have a ghost tour that ends at 9 and that party doesn't start until 10 o'clock. Luckily, it's only a half-hour drive for me to get there, so that's good. But super busy month, super fun, and we're doing some new things this year. So anybody here in the North Georgia mountains, come check out my ghost tour. But as I mentioned, you're also doing a ghost tour. I know you're down with the COVID, but you're going to be back on the streets of Arkansas real soon, right?
Yeah, hopefully I'm back up this weekend. Prater's going to take over the tour that I've got scheduled for tomorrow. It's a Booze and Brews tour, so Prater's going to handle that for me tomorrow. And then he and I are doing a little show on Sunday for our friends at the Labyrinth. I'm going to post some stuff about that. Marcus at the Labyrinth has got some really cool events going on. We're going to do a little show on Sunday for a meet and greet kind of deal. And then hopefully I'm back up on my feet by next Wednesday to start the Booze and Brews. So Zeke, you mentioned Friday the 13th. Now, a couple years ago, you issued I think it was called the Badass Magician Challenge on Friday the 13th.
That's exactly,
and you had one person. Yeah, I think you had one person accomplish all that was needed. And tell us a little bit about the Badass Magician Challenge on Friday the 13th.
So first of all, I like to mention that I have a routine that I have been performing longer than any other magician today, and I've performed it more successfully than any other magician today. And that is a version of Russian roulette. Now, some versions back in the day would they would do a bullet catch, or they would shoot the gun and catch in their teeth. I actually use a solid steel spike. And then 4 styrofoam cups. So we play a little game of cat and mouse. They hide the spike while my back is turned, and then I'm blindfolded. And then I, one at a time, smash my hand down on each of those cups, hopefully locating the 3 empty and saving the best for last and not smash my hand down on the 4th. My wife, if she ever accompanied me to a show, always gets up and excuses herself for that routine. She doesn't like to be in the room. It is not a magic trick. It is not a stunt. It is absolutely a real challenge and a real dangerous routine. And on Friday the 13th, the historically unlucky day of the year, I challenge out there to all the magicians that, if you're a badass magician, take the challenge. Perform Russian roulette on Friday the 13th. By the way, I'm not responsible if anything bad happens. And I did have a couple of magicians take me up on it. I believe, Paul, you took on the challenge and you survived. I think you have all your appendages still in good shape.
All here. Yep. That's
so there's an infamous video of David Blaine having a little problem in Vegas with performing that, as well as also been banned at the Magic Castle because, well, it hasn't worked out so well. And some say it's cursed or it's haunted. I say that, if you're strong enough and you believe, you have the ability to remove those curses. And good luck if you want to try it this year. This Friday the 13th, I will reissue that challenge, and it will be taking place. And what do you get if you win? Well, I'll acknowledge you as a badass magician. What happens if you lose? Well, you'll need some medical attention and probably a new routine.
I've got the certificate hanging in my basement at the bar. So in Colorado.
Yes, you do, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you, there's also a very fun video. Well, fun is a fun word for it, but of a TV show in, I believe it was Turkey, where the guy takes the hostess's hand and uses her hand, and he mucks it up and puts a spindle right through her hand, and the shriek that out of her is just, when I would perform my version of the smash and stab on stage, I would air the video before. I would show that video of the guy screwing it up. And one year I performed it at the Moxie Theater in Greeley, Colorado, and I brought up some people on stage to hide the knife, to move it around and try to put it under one of the bags where I wouldn't find it. And I brought my physician up, my doctor, and he didn't know what was going on. And he as soon as he figured it out, he goes, "Paul, I advise you as your physician, you should probably not go through with this." I'm like, well, too late now. Luckily, I have you up here just in case. So
I think it's important. I think it's important that you take the audience on a roller coaster ride of emotion, and I think danger is an important element. And I know exactly the video you're talking about, and most magicians do. And I said this when it came out. Any magician that performs, and there is and I don't care if it's 1%, any percent chance of harm or danger to your spectators, that is completely irresponsible,
Absolutely.
completely disrespectful. And that is the difference between, in my opinion, a true professional, and I'm not talking about somebody who gets paid or whatever. I'm talking about somebody who conducts this business, and our business is entertainment professionally. There's no way that I assume all the risk. I tell the person, hey, you can hide it anywhere you want. If something happens, this is on me. I'm taking all the risk, and I would never take their hands and do that. It's disappointing, and again, unprofessional. And I hate that person got harmed. She didn't sign up that morning to be involved in danger in a magic show. Why would we expect an audience member would do a stunt? Doesn't make any sense to me. And again, that's a classic example of someone who is not professionally
Well,
trained.
and he got on TV. So there we go. There we go.
Yeah,
So
well, he's got that.
So I was talking about you the other day, and somebody asked where I first met you. And I think the very first time we met was in person, was in Myrtle Beach. And God, I don't even remember how many years ago it was. I mean, what are we on now? Nine East Coast?
I guess it's going to be 9 years. And so
this,
I mean, it was
this is probably 2 or 3
years, right?
Well, I don't know, because were you at the first one? I don't think you were at the first one, were you?
Yeah, I was at the first one.
All right, the first one, I think you performed right before Strivings. I think you performed with Strivings, and then the next year we performed together.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that's right. Yep, that's exactly correct.
I give Zeke credit for my show. Zeke went before me. We're at 11 o'clock on Friday. It was a Friday the 13th, if you remember right.
That's right. I was the early act, and then the death act followed me. So
no. The year that you and I performed, you were the 11 o'clock, and I was the midnight.
Oh, that's right. I was talking about Striving.
Yeah, I think you were. I think it was the same the year before, but on Friday the 13th, it was you were the 11 o'clock, and I was the 12 o'clock. And I'm watching Zeke's show. And I'm sitting with some buddies. Prater was one of them, a couple of other buddies. And I said, there's no way I can follow this guy. There's no way. My act is too serious. And Zeke's up there just killing. He's got a bit that, if you have not heard, The City of Lights is one of the most infamous, famous, best lines in all of magic. And I looked at a friend. I said, I can't. I was trying to be serious, and this was my first time performing in front of magicians. And and the friend looked at me and said, "Don't be serious. You're not a serious guy. Your character's not you." So I bagged my script about 30 minutes before my show. There was maybe 125, 130, 140 people there.
Yeah.
And I bagged the script. I knew the routines, and I just abandoned the script and went up and was myself. And as I told my kids growing up, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember the story. And so many of us get so deep into our character that there's no you can't distinguish between what's real and what's not. And my character in my show is me now. It's just maybe a little bit more vocal and sometimes obscene version of myself, but it's just me. So the show that you see now, the show that's traveled all over the world, and the show that was heavily influenced by my dear friend Zeke Powerz. So I owe a lot to you.
Well, I'm so humbled by your words. I am fanboy number one for you. I love your show. We perform distilleries and wineries and almost coast to coast, right? Colorado doesn't have a coast, but we've been out west. We've been out on the East Coast. We got to hook it up here in the Midwest.
We got to get you down here. Prater and I are talking about getting you down here in the South and get you down here in.
I'm looking for that. I got to get you up here to the greater Atlanta and North Georgia area and get you up here and let them see what the Knopf is all about.
That's right.
The thing of it is that for me, and I did kids shows many years ago. I refer to those as the dark days of my performing career, only because I had a great time and it was all fun. But as a performer, I didn't feel fulfilled. I just didn't feel like I was really connecting with people. Kids were giving me high fives and hot dogs, and that was all fine. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I was really achieving something. And I wanted to have a show that had a little bit more substance and a little bit more depth to it. And if you've not been to my show, a little sneak peek here. In my shows, we conjure up a ghost. Somebody actually during that, hold on. Actually, somebody during the show actually gets possessed. Well, it's only their hand, but they still get possessed. They end up committing a robbery, and there's a heist involving large amounts of cash. We have the spirits that move things and give us a sign. Hold on, I got a semi going by here. And so, with all of these dark, creepy things that are happening, there's people getting robbed, there's ghosts, there's spirit activity, there's, all these strange coincidences, minds are being read. That can be pretty serious, heavy, subject for people. And I like to keep them laughing from the beginning to the end. And at the end, when they ask them, hey, how was this show with these ghosts and hands being possessed and, all the people risking their lives, which is me, of course, what? Tell me about it. And they're like, oh, dude, it was hilarious. And they're like, what? I don't get it. And so I feel, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I think a room full of laughter helps the creepiness go down.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And it keeps them light and fun because at the end of the day, no matter how serious we are and when we talk about life and, we only have a limited amount of time to spend with each other and all that. It can be very dark and very sobering and very humbling when you think about all that. And that's very true. But you paid a ticket to have fun. And yeah, some people watch sad movies. I'm not one of those guys. Mine's more like a campy horror flick. And that's my vibe. And sophisticatedly snarky is what I had a client call me this past week. And I go, you know what? That's great. And I think that describes it. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of creepy, weird stuff. But at the end of the day, I make a lot of friends, and more importantly, we make a lot of memories of the event and things to remember. And I think that's true for your show as well, too, Paul. When people see the Mystery Collection, they see some weird stuff. They see some of your, if you bring some of your oddities or your haunted artifacts with you, you use those in your show. And they have an experience, and that's really what, as a mystery performer is key. They have an actual experience. It's not just they bought tickets and saw a show. They went and they participated and had an experience, whether they, learned about a particular history or, you sent me some graveyard dirt. There's the story of French right in town and that, what happened with him, and you have an actual photograph of that. And, the interjecting and I think adding some of that local history and some of the legends and stuff that you've been directly impacted with, I think that's what makes a show truly entertaining.
All right, so you mentioned a couple things in that I want to touch on. First of all, you said campy horror movies. Now you've been in campy horror movies.
That is a fact. So, and the sad part is the best one I was in. My brother-in-law, who ran Triron Pictures, actually, he passed away last year, and trust me, we're still mourning his loss. But in the process of filming, the hard drive had crashed that stored a majority of the footage that had been filmed, and it was a fun slasher flick. We're definitely paying homage to all of the '80s camp slasher movies, and I don't think that one will ever. They still are optimistic that they have enough footage that they can put it together. I haven't heard an update in about 6 months on it, but you can go to Amazon and check out there's a movie called Oro Arrowhead. It's not really campy or a horror movie, but it does have a deeper message about connecting with nature and the earth.
What is it called? What is it?
History. It's called Oro.
O-R-O?
It's O-R-O, and that is the Cherokee word for gold. It's basically the golden arrowhead, and I believe it's called Oro Arrowhead.
Okay.
It was filmed right here in the Georgia mountains, and you can rent it. It's just a couple of dollars on Amazon, and you can turn it off after about 2 minutes because I'm in like the opening scene when they come in, and it's a fun story. It ended up being kind of a cult classic here in the area because so many people saw it. It was such a good film. They went back and saw it again because then they wanted to see, hey, where's that building? Hey, I know that stream. Yeah. Hey, I know those rivers. I know that waterfalls. And they did a great job. The one thing I'll talk about, that movie really showcases how beautiful it is here in the North Georgia mountains. From the waterfalls, the Appalachian Trail is here. Just some beautiful sights, and it's a fun film. You know what? Money back guarantee. If you rent it and you don't like it, send me a letter, self-addressed stamped envelope, and I'll send your money back to you. That's perfect. My guarantee.
There you go. The Zeke Powerz money back guarantee. So one other thing, and I know you're in between meetings today, and I appreciate you hopping outside to do this. These pop-ups are going to be fun because I usually choose to stay in my apartment or at my house in Colorado and work from home and do stuff at home. But when you have to stay home, it fucking sucks. When you can't go anywhere, and you're on lockdown, it sucks. So the other thing I wanted to mention real quick is that that we as entertainers we conjure up ghosts as entertainers. Do you have any personal real, and I say real, paranormal experiences, or have you seen a ghost? Have you seen had anything odd happen to you in your life?
And this is a great question, and I think that when I started down the path of ghosts and mysteries that we're not really sure what's happening, I like to say I was very skeptical. I am really the first guy to go, wait a minute, what about this? What about that? Let's try to dismiss that using, we say scientific means. I don't know if we really have true scientific means to detect ghosts or debunk ghosts. But what I can tell you is that I had a lot of experiences I couldn't quite explain, but I could come up with a justification that it was possibly traffic or it was a light source somewhere else. But I had something that happened. Actually, it happened last year, and this one was really, really unbelievable as far as the timing went. I had performed here at the local distillery a number of times, and when I partnered with them and they wanted to do the ghost tour, because I told them, I said, your building is haunted. And they said, really? I said, well, and they're like, yeah, we've had a few things. And I said, I think this would be a great place to do a ghost tour. I had been working with the Historical Society. They had tried a ghost tour before in the past. And I'm not sure for what reasons, didn't quite work out. I think it's one of those things when it comes to ghost tours, a lot of people want to do it, but then when it's time to do it, then everybody gets busy. And, and no fault to them. I think they tried it, just didn't work out. I met with the distillery and they said, yeah, we want to do this. We lined out everything. And I said, well, here's what I want. I want to come and I want to tour the entire property. And they said, well, okay. I mean, you've been here before. I said, I understand, but I want to go to every room that I'm allowed to take people in. I want to go everywhere that you say people feel uncomfortable, something strange is happening. And I'll bring my wife with me. And my wife is, she's very sensitive to those things. Another story for another time. And again, being skeptical. We went and stayed at a friend's house. He has a antique mansion. My mentor, LP, up in Ohio. He has an old home that was built in the 1800s. Still has the coal chutes and stuff, a formal dining parlor, marble fireplace. The place is just beautiful. And the first question, as soon as my wife heard we were going to go spend the night, is, hey, is that place haunted? And he told me it was. And of course, I told her, no, not at all. And she goes, did you ask? I said, absolutely, I asked. By the way, this is the first and really last time I ever boldly lied to my wife, because we spent the night, and the next day at breakfast, she goes, hey, did you guys know that your place is haunted? And they both were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. We told Zeke about it. I was just sitting there. Wow, that's a long ride back from Ohio to Georgia, I got to tell you. But she told them everything that they had told me in the validation. It was just unbelievable. So I told her I wanted her to go with me to this distillery, walk around, to see if she senses anything. So we're walking around. We walked through the whole place, and we were wrapping up, and it was they had already closed for the day, and they were really, the manager was there, and she was kind of past her time, and she goes, hey, I'm ready to go whenever you are. I said, no problem. I said, hey, what's over here? And it was the main room that I had performed where the stage was. And there's a little closet in the back. I said, hey, what's back here? I never walked over here. And as I started walking back to the closet, to my left, as a matter of fact, it would be almost like this, where there was a wall and like a corner. I saw there was a like a coat there, and I saw the coat that was on the corner. It just kind of went around the corner like somebody grabbed it. And I thought Dave, the bartender, had grabbed it. Well, as I was walking down, I was looking at both my wife and the manager, and the manager's eyes got really big, and she looks over at my wife, and she goes, whoa. And my wife says, oh, did you see that too? And she goes, yeah. And the manager goes, I am ready to leave right now. And I said, and I turned around because I had missed whatever they saw, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did you guys see? I go, where's Dave at, the bartender? And they're like, oh, he's not here today. And I got real quiet because I was like, then who grabbed Dave's jacket? And I looked over where the bar was. There was no jacket. There was no black coat or anything like that. Now, I spent the entire ride home that night and the next morning thinking about what just happened and what are the possible explanations. Because, again, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Clearly something black moved around the corner. I thought, again, it looked like somebody grabbing a coat. But when I talked to my wife, she told me it was, and she said it was right on this corner, and she showed right where it was, and I thought, okay, that's exactly what I saw. And the manager was just like, I've got my keys, and we need to lock up, we need to go now. I went back the next day because I mentally came up with a list of all the possible things it could be. when you go to these various, distilleries and bars and restaurants, they always have stuff on the walls. They've got, jerseys and pennants and, decorations, all this stuff, the decor and the vibe. I went in and there was nothing on the wall. Absolutely nothing. They didn't even have a banner. All they had was it was decorated for Halloween. On the other side of the room, it was decorated. That wall by the bar and that whole backside, there was absolutely nothing on the entire wall. I went back the next morning. They opened at 11. I was there at 11:01 because as soon as I saw them unlock the doors, I jumped out and went in. And I started taking pictures like crazy of that entire area. I went back. I looked at every frame, every photo. And there's nothing there. And when I say nothing, there was nothing paranormal in any of the photos, but there also was nothing on the walls, nothing on the ceiling. There was nothing that could have indicated it was air blowing something. I can't explain it. And we have to say it was an apparition, but it was witnessed by two other people. So it wasn't just I saw something and you got to believe me. I saw something, but two other people witnessed it and had a better shot of it than me. Fast forward, I'm doing the ghost tours last year, and I have a person come up from the ghost tour, and they go through the basement. After the basement, we finish up with kind of a little routine, and where we bless everybody, and we ask everybody to travel home safely. And I had a guy come up afterwards, and you can kind of tell there's always like that person's kind of straggling in the back. They're saying hi, and I'm selling T-shirts, talking to people, and they're all leaving. And this one guy kind of hanging out in the back, and he comes up and he goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." And he proceeds to tell me the exact same story I just told you, except for it was in the basement. It was darker than dark. It whipped around the corner. It was too solid to be a gas, but it was too light and translucent to be a solid. Like you can't really. It was just something darker than dark in a dark room that moved around the corner. And then I told him about the experience I just shared now. And he just looked at me and he goes, "That's exactly what happened." So, and I told him, I said, "Listen, I don't have all the answers. I've got a bunch of the questions, and I can tell you right now, for the most part, and this is from my experience over 20 years in this field of the paranormal, investigating various locations and legendary hotspots in the U.S., 95% of the time, the ghosts are not going to mess with you. They're not going to harm you. They scare you because you don't know what it is. I always think maybe we scare them too, right. But you can't really, say this is what happened or that because we just don't know. But what I can tell you is I can't explain it. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, we had a lady cleaning our house, and the cleaning lady, she had worked for us for over a year at that point, and she had cleaned I call it the library. It's really the entranceway, and I used to keep my books there, so it was the library. And it sounds fancier than the mudroom, and although it's not a mudroom, it's just our empty entry foyer. And she had moved all the furniture away from the walls and swept and mopped, around the baseboards and everything. She pushed all the furniture back, and then she swept and mopped through the middle of the floor. When she came back into the room, in the middle of the floor, there were two pennies laying heads up.
She went.
Yeah. Now, the only person home was my wife, who worked from home at that time. She was in the office, totally separate room, and she's coming in, and she keeps coming into where my wife is working, and my wife is like giving her the, wait 1 minute here, and she, as soon as she finished her call that she was on, she went and said, "Hey, is everything okay?" And she goes, "Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had went out into the, into the foyer." And she goes, "No, I've been in my office on a call the whole time. That's why you kept coming in." And she goes, "Yeah." She says, "Listen," she says, "I swept and mopped everything out there." And my wife's like, "Okay, I'm not saying you didn't." And the lady was very upset. She thought, well, something must have happened. Was it really dirty? Whatever. She goes, "I swept everything. I pushed all the furniture back. I swept and mopped through the middle of the room. I got rid of my trash. I put the mops up. And when I came back into the room to grab the rest of my supplies, go to the next room, right here in the middle floor, not one, two pennies heads up." And she goes, "Listen, I might have missed a penny. And it is possible that maybe a penny rolled when I was sweeping and it landed there." She says, "Although I swept and mopped every inch of that room and every inch of the floor, there is zero way that one penny would show up." She says, "For two pennies to show up side by side heads up," she says, "If you did, today is my last day." And my wife is just sitting there taking it in like, listen, it's not really trying to hurt you. We have this little spirit that seems to move around, and the only time he gets upset is when things get messy. And one time when the room was real messy, we were painting. Actually, we were working on that room, doing the flooring and everything. we had a shadow pass in front of the door a couple of times. And I thought it was somebody coming to knock on the door. And that's one of those experiences. The dog barked. We had company. We were watching a movie. We saw somebody walk up to the door. The dog's barking. I go up to answer the door. Nobody there. They're like, who is it? And I'm like, there's nobody here. And my wife says, oh, it's that guy again. And then our friend is like, what guy? And I'm like, and I'm looking outside going, hey, I've heard these stories. I've never seen it. It probably was like the shadows from the trees or something, like casting a shadow over the front of the door. The only problem is, well, like everybody else, I don't have trees directly in front of my door, so that didn't make any sense. And by the way, I live on a private, secluded property. I've got a fence all the way around, and there's a gate. You can't even drive your car in if the gate's closed. So not only that, once you get in the gate, then you got to walk down this long sidewalk just to get to my front door. And somehow somebody did that in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. Now, I can't explain the pennies. I wasn't there and I didn't witness it. I did see a shadow at that door, and I'm pretty certain that, yeah, it was a ghost, but I can't definitively say it absolutely wasn't something else. It very easily could have been some wild feral child playing, ding dong.
Right.
I doubt it. It is very unlikely, but it's not impossible. And for that reason, and again, that was witnessed by 2 other people. So again, I'm not ready to sort of write that off and say that's exactly what happened and it was paranormal ghosts. I'm not, because I can't say that. But I can tell you definitively, when I was at the distillery and I saw that, I saw somebody, it was either a coat or like a long scarf, but it was dark black and it unraveled around that corner and it went. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
And 2 other people witnessed it, and they can explain it and say exactly what it is, and that it was a ghost. So, those are just a couple of the experiences I've had. I saw Bigfoot when I was back. I saw Bigfoot in Kentucky in the middle of the day, and I didn't know it at the time. We were playing this paintball game at this leadership place, and I radioed in that I saw the bad guys out in the field, and they come running, and they were like, "Where at? What was going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's behind that tree." And they're like, "Here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Did he stick his head out like this?" I said, "Yeah, but it was way up higher. He must have been standing on a rock." And then all the guys were like whispering and looking at each other that ran the place, and they left. And I dismissed it. I didn't think anything more about it. And they were very adamant. If you see something like this again, you have got to let us know right away. I'm like, okay, I will. And I thought that was part of the whole paintball game we were playing there. And a month later, I was back at work, and we were having a meeting, and we were recapping our training. And they said, "You guys aren't going to believe this. The time you guys were out there was actually a group that saw Bigfoot in the middle of the day, and apparently they've seen him a couple of times there. Nobody's been able to catch him. They found some prints, but he's been witnessed by a handful of people, like hiding behind trees and stuff." And I was sitting there in a meeting going, "That was me."
Yeah, right,
I was that guy. I was the one that told him. And I'm sitting around it. Everybody else is just kind of dismissing it. And I'm like, we got done. I went up and I go, "Hey, I think it was me that saw Bigfoot." They're like, "Yeah, get out of here." And I'm like, they're like, "How come you didn't say anything?" I go, "No, I'm the guy that reported it. They never told me that. They just said, well, just make sure you let us know if you see it again." And I was like, okay, I will. And it just ended up being one of those things that you just can't explain. I can't explain. Where the guy was about 6 foot tall. He went down to the tree line where I saw him. He stuck his head out, and I go, "No, he was way taller than that, man. It was like way above your head. He's probably standing there. There's probably a rock behind him he was standing on. He was real tall." And then that's when they got real quiet. They didn't talk about it. I'm like, later I put all the pieces together. How could somebody that tall, wearing all black, that far away, be standing there? Well, if he wasn't Bigfoot, I don't know who else it could have been, because they had to be at least 8.5 feet tall.
Right.
Is where it was. So sure, there's been plenty of things that I've seen and experienced I can't explain. I'm not ready to chalk it up to the paranormal. Again, I think it's important everybody maintains a level of skepticism. Always keep your mind open, but not so open your brain will fall out, I think, is the old cliche.
That's right.
And I think that's important. It's just, just because you've had an experience that I haven't doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You've been to Peru. I've never been to Peru. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just that you've had a different experience than I have.
Right.
Now, clearly, we can hop a plane and we can go there and figure it out. And the paranormal is a little bit different because there is no road map. There is no location. The paranormal is where it is. Now, there are certain things, events, and I think environmental factors, things like death and tragedy. I also think like a high volume of memories. You hear the stories about residual hauntings, where this lady walks down the hallway every day and doesn't say anything or do anything or interact. She just walks down the hallway And then you find out later that it was a nursing home, and there was one lady that ran it for the sick and the poor, and she walked down the halls every day and every night to make sure everybody was fed and taken care of. And then you hear that, and you're like, all of a sudden everything starts to make sense. She's just, whether it's her memory or her energy that is trapped and repeating itself, not necessarily like she is stuck, which is a possibility in a theory, but it's one of those things that you can't really explain, but it does kind of make sense when you look at it from a different perspective.
Right, right. So, Bigfoot, you've done a lot of Bigfoot stuff, right?
I have. Matter of fact, the one of the best. I know it's the largest Bigfoot museum east of the Mississippi. Is right here, about a half hour from my house, right here in the North Georgia mountains in Cherry Lawn, Georgia, which is close to Blue Ridge. Most people know where Blue Ridge is. Dave, a real nice guy. I've known him for years. I've attended a number of events there. I actually donated some products and some items to some of the displays there. The thing that's really interesting is that the kind of the first real big popular Bigfoot TV show that came on, that was on the Animal Planet, which was Discovery Bigfoot with Bobo and those guys. The very first episode that they had, that was like a pilot for that, and it got picked up, was based on the dash cam footage of a police officer that was driving, and they saw something go across the road so quick they couldn't explain what it was. It was like 3 steps across a 2-lane road, and he was all the way on the other side.
Right.
And that's the footage they started off with. That footage was shot in Helen, which is actually where Paul Prater went for his birthday last year, and I met him up there. It was shot right outside Helen, which is, again, about a half hour right from where I'm standing right now in this area. It's a hot.
Hey, Zeke, I'm going to have you hold on.
Because
Zeke,
the Appalachian Trail starts right here.
I'm going to have you stop for just a second. For some reason, it looks like we've stopped broadcasting on Facebook.
Oh. Okay.
Let me see what happened here. It shut down on. Bear with me just a second. I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's good, man. I'll talk it up to. Here's some more paranormal activity, man. You start talking about ghosts and Bigfoots and UFOs, weird stuff happens.
And it auto corrects you to Powers with an S, fuckers.
Of course it does.
Let's see. I'm not quite sure what happened. Oh fuck! I don't want to do it on here. I need to do it on here. Bear with me. This is crazy. I don't know.
No, you're good. Huh.
Let's see why it's All right, I'm going to end it here, and then we're going to start it up again.